Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and very privileged today. We've got our guy Steele Chambers as always, but joined by Senator John Husted, Senator out of the great state of Ohio, and a lot going on. Senator, thank you for joining us. And despite a very busy time with a lot of the stuff that's going on with the NIL world that has now made its way to your desk and the desk of Congress.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a rush here to get this done in the next couple weeks. It's unsure whether we can get the agreement to get it done, but it comes down to a few things. They want antitrust exemption. They want no preemption by the states. So 40 states have their own NIL laws. The colleges want just one federal law, not a bunch of states doing their own thing. They also want a hard cap on how much institutions can spend. And then the question about enforcement, who's going to enforce this? Those are the sticking points, but I think there's some agreement on, one transfer per athlete, some age caps, looking out for the non-revenue sports, making sure that they're protected in this. No super conference. That's some of the, so, understand, like, you got Ohio State who thinks this, but you got UC who thinks this, you got the MAC schools, you got a lot of different interest in when you're writing a law that's going to affect them all.
And what are the conversations like? I know that the university presidents have maybe been involved, some of the commissioners, talk about these long phone calls. Have there been a lot of dialogue back and forth over the last couple of weeks about how they want this to look at different levels?
Yeah, well, you have, first of all, I think most of the schools are like, look, the wild, wild west has to come to an end. Some form of regulation, even if it's not perfect, has to happen. But then you have the Big Ten and the SEC who have been the last ones to come on board. I think at one point here recently, I talked to a number of Big Ten officials who said they'd rather have no bill than this bill, but it's fixable if they can get these issues resolved. But when you talk about no collectives and regulating the agents and things like that, and a hard cap, then you say, well, what about how the money can flow around the dam, right? Can they pay high school students? And I use this example, campaign finance. Remember, we were going to cap the amount of money that goes into politics, right? Did it stop the amount of money that goes into politics? No, it did not. And so you got to be careful about how you do these things. But frankly, there's no rule right now. I think if you just simply did 5 years total eligibility, one transfer, that would help. But I think some of this, one sticking point is they want to act like the NFL in the sense that they want to be able to have a cap, the amount of money that they pay athletes. But unlike the NFL, there's not collective bargaining amongst all the players. So that's the issue that we've got to sort of get around. What's fair to the players, but also doesn't, caps this wild, wild west atmosphere that we have right now that frankly is not sustainable for college athletics.
Now, throughout this entire process, are you receiving any pressure towards the schools? Because I know you're a man of the people. You want to, of course, make everyone happy. So are you ever kind of nervous that, like, if you're going against Ohio State or anything, then maybe people are going to get mad at you?
Well, I listen. I'm in listening mode right now. I don't come to these kinds of conversations where I tell them what is in their best interest. I listen to what they tell me is in their best interest, but I also remind them that I've got a lot of schools that are coming from a lot of different perspectives on this. And I always believe that, being transparent, tell me what you want. Let's see how we can work through those issues. I think that, ultimately, though, the schools have to make a choice. Would you rather have this bill or no bill? And I think most of them would rather have something rather than nothing.
Senator, we're here with Senator John Husted doing a great job for the great state of Ohio. And, oftentimes you talked about some of the simple things, the 5 years, the eligibility cap, maybe a hard cap on numbers, one-time transfer. It seemed like this bill started simple, and then a lot of things, like many bills in Congress, without knowing fully how it works, there's a lot of things that get added into them. Does it seem like if maybe more of a simplistic version of something like this would possibly be better for everybody?
Well, maybe. Maybe. I talked to one of my colleagues is Tommy Tuberville, who you all know,
Yeah.
from who was a college football coach, and Tommy would tell you, yeah, just do 1 year, one transfer and 5 years total eligibility, and that'll shrink the size of the problem. I think he's right about that, but I think that there are a lot of the schools who want more because they want some predictability. I think the one thing that I actually have the big concern about, because look, the people with a lot of money are always going to do fine, right? In the end, Ohio State's going to do fine under any scenario that this occurs. However, what about all the non-revenue sports? If you soak all the money in athletics towards those schools, to like football and basketball, there may be a complete loss of all these Olympic sports that they can no longer fund. And I'm concerned about that too, because athletics, in the end, the reason schools formed athletic teams was to build physical fitness and character among their students. And the resilience that you learn, the character that you learn, the toughness that you learn, all of those things that you learn from athletics, we want as many student athletes to experience this as possible. One provision that I want to get in the bill is limiting the number of non-Americans who are filling up all these roster spots, particularly in the non-revenue sports. You look at some things like soccer and hockey and tennis and golf, and particularly at the women's sports level, they have some teams that are completely full of rosters of students from other countries, like no American citizens on these. And I would like to cap that at 20%. I'm not for banning foreign athletes from coming, but if you're asking the federal government to protect college athletes, shouldn't we be protecting it for Americans? Don't we want, to have student athletes from Ohio get opportunities to go play at University of Cincinnati rather than just students from other countries? And again, I'm not for banning it, but I would limit it so that we can make sure that we have enough American citizens who actually have opportunities, particularly in these non-revenue sports. I'm not talking about, we're not talking about basketball and football. I'm talking about the smaller ones.
Well, absolutely. And I appreciate your take on that. It's something that I've kind of brought up to people throughout the years, because I don't know if a number of people realize, just how many of those roster spots are going to that, even whether it's Ohio State, Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio. You're someone who, played football at Dayton, won a national championship at Dayton. You've also tried to sponsor legislation in Ohio when you were part of the state delegation to, limit pay to play for high school opportunities, which to keep the funnel wide because of the things that you talked about. And how do you think, John, your experience playing football at Dayton and playing at the college level has kind of influenced your opinion of this and the view that you might have?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I grew up in a family where no one had gone to college. No, I didn't even know how to apply to college. I didn't know how to get recruited. I didn't know any of these things. I grew up on County Road J outside of Montpelier, Ohio. I'm sure the college recruiters are not coming there, right? This is I had 86 people in my graduating class. So a lot of kids don't know. They don't know the pathway to get there. And what athletics, I would never be a U.S. Senator if I hadn't played football at the University of Dayton, because it taught me how to compete. It taught me to, how to be a winner, to believe in myself, that, actually it's not just the kids from the big cities and that come from the great programs that can succeed. Anybody can, if they're willing to pay the price, if they're willing to work hard enough, and you have people that will help you and give you a chance to do things. And I want that opportunity for every kid in America. I want them to have these opportunities. And a lot of kids, college is expensive. They're not going to have this experience unless they maybe get a roster spot or a scholarship or something like that to a school. And I want to preserve those opportunities for students, because I believe that athletics is the best character building, outside of the military. The athletics is the best character building tool that we have for our young people. And I want as many people to participate in it as possible.
So one of the things that maybe people don't understand, they talked about the bill being committee. the process of a bill getting from the committee to the Senate floor to ultimately getting passed? Like, what does a timeline on something like that look like? I know you guys are up for recess here coming up next week.
It can go, if you get agreement, it can go fast, but if there's not agreement, it can be like evolution, at the speed of evolution. It is not, an easy process. But Ted Cruz is the chairman of the committee. Ted has really leaned in to try to bring people together on this. And I think that there's, I don't know. I'm not optimistic that this gets done in the next few weeks, but maybe once college football season gets here and we get a little more attention to it, that'll shake some things loose. But it's hard to get, because you have to have 60 votes. You have to have enough Democrats and Republicans both agree. This really isn't a partisan issue. Most of the senators are listening to the influential colleges in their states, and like in Ohio, you got it all. You've got small schools like Dayton. You've got the MAC schools. You've got next level up like UC, and then you've got the big and great Ohio State. And so there's a lot of variety of opinions about what happened. But I will say that, but all in all, they want something, because the way it is right now is going to ruin a lot of athletic opportunities. And again, not at the football level and not at the basketball level, but they're going to drain all of their resources to those sports, and then there's not going to be anything left to fund the other sports at these schools, and you're going to see a diminishing opportunity and for what we call the Olympic sports, and those are very important, because those are the CEOs of companies. If you go look at the Fortune 500 companies, and you look at, a lot of them played sports, because it's just such a great way to build character, toughness, resilience, teamwork. All the attributes that make us successful in society are learned in sports, and we need to keep those opportunities available for as many student athletes as possible.
And I thought Secretary of State Marco Rubio did a really good job articulating that. And we have such a great women's Olympic program because of our collegiate model of how everybody gets these opportunities. You don't want to see that go away. You have, a couple of daughters. I've got a daughter that they play tennis. Your daughter's a tennis player. I mean, when was the last time you think you could have returned one of her serves?
So that train left the station in junior high school.
Oh, absolutely fantastic.
Not happening at this point.
Before we get you out of here, I know you're very busy, and we really appreciate you, Senator Husted, taking some time with us today. Just talk about some of the things, you've only been in office here a couple of years, some of the other things you've been working on for the state of Ohio outside of this NIL component.
Yeah, look, when you're from a place like Ohio, it's always helping working families. We passed the working family tax cut plan, which was which for the average family of four making $80,000 a year, it's a $6,000 tax benefit, including $2,200 per child tax credit, which helps those families afford to do things for their kids. And for me, like, family means everything. I want everybody's family to have a chance, and so those things are great. And I grew up in Ohio, guys, when Ohio was dying, man. We had 8% unemployment rate, and factories were closing. The factory my dad worked at closed when I was growing up, and a lot of people were leaving the state. And then recently, we were ranked the #1 state to do business. We have more jobs now than we've ever had in the history of our state. One of the lowest unemployment rates we've ever had in the history of our state. And now our children and grandchildren don't need to leave Ohio to find a place to go to work. That's the stuff that matters to me, because it's not just about money. It's about your family. It's about, like I have a couple grandchildren. They live a half a mile from me. That's the greatest gift I could ever have in life. But if you grow up and your children have to leave Ohio because there isn't a place to go to work, then that's failing, and we don't want that to happen. And so that's always going to be job one for me, creating jobs for people and give them a chance to succeed in our great state. Because I love Ohio. I mean, this is a great state. People in Washington pick on me. They're like, well, why do you love Ohio so much? I'm like, because it's full of normal people. Okay. It's like they're just normal, good, hardworking people, do the right things, by and large. And it's like, that's why I love Ohio.
It is tremendous, and it's awesome. Like, Steele came up here from Georgia. We get a lot of guys nationally now Senator, that come to play for Ohio State, and then they come here and stay because they love it so much and they enjoy Columbus and all the growth and things that are happening. And we really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you for doing some great work over there in the Senate for us. And hopefully, fingers crossed, you guys can cobble together some sort of bill to get something done here in the next handful of weeks.
Oh boy, it's important. We want to be fair to everybody, but in college sports is just like one of the great things about America. That's why people want to come here from other places around the world, and we need to do our part to save it.
Thank you so much, Senator. Have a great day, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you, Senator.